Living in the End: How to Dwell in Wealth Before It Arrives, written by Justice O. Malcolm, published by Audiobook's Office. Introduction. Wealth is not a destination, it's a frequency. Most people spend their lives chasing it, waiting for some external sign to finally give them permission to feel secure, successful, or significant. But what if everything you believe you're waiting for is already available to you right now, not outside of you but within you? That's the core of living in the end. It's not about delusion, it's not wishful thinking, it's about mastery of mind, of identity, of vibration. It's about understanding a universal truth that most overlook. You do not manifest what you want, you manifest who you are. This book isn't about financial advice in the traditional sense. You won't find investment tips or budgeting strategies here. What you'll find is far more foundational, because every form of lasting wealth begins in consciousness. Your outer world is nothing more than a mirror of your inner assumptions, and if you're not wealthy within, no amount of money will ever make you feel like you are. Living in the end means training yourself to feel, think, speak, and act as if the wealth you desire is already yours, because on an energetic level it is. Living in the end isn't pretending, it's embodying. It's the conscious decision to step into the version of you who already owns the house, already built the business, already lives the freedom-filled lifestyle, and letting that identity become your new default setting. This isn't about ego or arrogance, this is about alignment. When you live in the end, you don't beg life to bring you what you want, you align with the version of yourself who already has it, and in that alignment things begin to shift, subtly at first, then powerfully. We have been taught to chase, we've been conditioned to believe that hustle is holy, and that hard work is the only legitimate path to prosperity. But while effort has its place, alignment is the real catalyst. You can grind your way into temporary income, but only identity will sustain wealth. To live in the end is to bypass the delay of waiting and to step into the now of belief. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between memory and imagination. It only responds to the feeling you dwell in most consistently. And if you consistently dwell in lack, fear, or doubt, no strategy will override that internal frequency. This book is an invitation to stop waiting and start being, to stop asking when will it happen and start affirming it's happening now. Across these pages we'll explore the mindset, the emotional discipline, and the daily habits that align you with the version of yourself who is already wealthy, not just financially but spiritually, creatively, and energetically, because wealth is a multidimensional experience. Money is part of it, yes, but so are peace, freedom, power, and joy. These are not prizes at the end of the race, they are the prerequisites. So as you turn each page, I encourage you not just to read these words, but to feel into them. Let them awaken something ancient in you, something that knows you've always been the source. This is not about creating a new version of you. This is about remembering who you really are. Wealth is not coming, it's already here. You only need to tune in. Welcome to the end. It's the beginning of everything. For more information about the ebook version of this audio, check the video description or visit Audiobook's.com. Chapter 1: The Law of Assumption. Wealth is already yours. There is a truth that challenges everything we've been taught about achievement and success, a truth so simple yet so powerful that most overlook it. That truth is this: you do not get what you want, you get what you assume. This is the foundation of the law of assumption. It is not rooted in hope or luck or chance. It is grounded in the unwavering certainty that what you assume to be true will eventually shape itself into your physical experience. Assumption isn't wishful thinking, it's inner knowing lived out as present reality before anything outside you has changed. When it comes to wealth, this law is the most overlooked and yet the most transformative. While others wait for evidence before feeling abundant, those who understand this law feel abundant now, knowing full well that the outer world is simply catching up. We are taught to believe in what we see, but that belief system traps us in a reactive state. We see lack, so we feel lack, and because we feel it, we continue to create it. It becomes a loop of confirmation and stagnation, but assumption reverses the process. It tells us feel first, and then you'll see. When you live from the end, assuming your wealth is already yours, your mind, emotions, and actions begin to align with that truth. You're not hoping anymore, you're being. That's the shift. Hope leaves room for doubt, but assumption closes the door on it. When you assume you are wealthy, you don't ask how or when, you simply know. You allow, you trust. The law of assumption doesn't require logic or external validation. It doesn't need statistics or data or a 5-year plan. It only requires that you adopt the internal stance of a person who already has what they desire. The world around you is a mirror. It reflects your deepest convictions, not your surface-level affirmations, but the beliefs you live by day in and day out. If you wake up every morning feeling like a person who is already financially free, already Prosperous, already supported by life's abundance, your external conditions will begin to reflect that inner conviction. The timeline may vary, but the result is inevitable. That's the power of this law. It responds not to your wishes, but to your certainty. Most people struggle because they hold dual beliefs. They want wealth, but assume struggle. They desire freedom, but expect resistance. This internal contradiction sends mixed signals to the subconscious mind, which is the true creative engine of your reality. To shift your life, you must first shift your assumptions. You must choose one story and live it without compromise. Assumption is not about pretending. It's not about lying to yourself. It's about identifying the feeling of the end result and living from that feeling, not toward it. There's a subtle but profound difference. To live from the end is to carry yourself moment to moment with the energy of I already am. I am wealthy. I am abundant. I am free. You might ask, but what if my current reality contradicts that? And the answer is it doesn't matter. Reality is delayed. The version of your life you are currently experiencing is old news. It's a projection of past thoughts, beliefs, and emotional states. So why stay loyal to it? Why let it dictate your identity when you know it was built by an outdated version of you? Assumption gives you the power to leap beyond your current circumstances. It invites you to stand in a new reality, not because of what you see, but because of what you know deep down to be true. Living in the end through the law of assumption means redefining how you interact with life. You stop waiting for the email, the check, the opportunity, the big break. You stop praying for a sign and start walking like someone who already received it. You speak with the confidence of someone who already knows they are backed by unseen forces. You invest in yourself as if money is flowing constantly. You move, act, and breathe like someone whose wealth is not on its way but already within them. This isn't about recklessness, it's about resonance. You are matching the frequency of your desired outcome, and in doing so you become a match for it. That's not magic, that's alignment. The law of assumption also reveals that wealth is not an external object, it's an extension of your state of being. When you change your state, you change your reality, not slowly, not conditionally, but fundamentally. The only delay is how long it takes you to assume and maintain the identity of the person who already has it all. Every moment spent in doubt, fear, or frustration delays the process, not because you're being punished, but because you are drifting from the frequency you've chosen. So the work really is to dwell in that frequency, to saturate yourself in the identity of wealth until your assumptions become so natural that your current reality no longer wields any power over you. This chapter is not meant to persuade you to adopt blind belief. It's here to awaken you to a deeper level of creation, one where your thoughts and feelings are not responses to the world but blueprints for it. You have always been the architect. The law of assumption hands you the tools to build something lasting, not out of scarcity and striving, but out of deep, steady certainty. You do not wait for wealth, you assume it, you live it, and eventually you watch the world rearrange itself to catch up with you. Chapter 2: Identity. First, become the wealthy version of you before money shows up, before the opportunities arrive, before the doors swing open. You must become the version of yourself who naturally attracts, receives, and sustains wealth. That version of you isn't waiting for permission, it isn't hoping something will change. That version already knows who they are and moves accordingly. This is the power of identity. It dictates what you allow into your life and what you unconsciously reject. Most people focus on doing more in hopes that they will become wealthy, but the truth is that becoming must come first. It's not what you do, it's who you are. While you do it, the world doesn't respond to your effort nearly as much as it responds to your embodiment. We all carry an internal thermostat for wealth. This isn't determined by your job title, your upbringing, or the economy. It's set by your self-concept, how you see yourself on a subconscious level. If you see yourself as someone who's just getting by, who has to struggle, who is bad with money, then even when opportunities show up, you will sabotage them or shrink away from them. That internal image has to be rewritten if you want to step into sustained abundance, and that's not something the outer world can do for you. You have to do it from within. You have to create a new identity and then live from it as if it's already real. This isn't about pretending to be something you're not. It's about discovering what you truly are beneath the layers of fear, doubt, and social conditioning. You were not born into scarcity thinking you were taught it. You were not born to struggle through life hoping for scraps. You were trained to accept that story. The good news is that identity can be rewritten. You can choose to believe something new about yourself and hold that belief long enough that it hardens into fact. Identity is not fixed, it's fluid, and the wealthiest people are not the ones who got lucky. They're the ones who assumed a wealthy identity and refused to step out of it even when circumstances didn't yet reflect it. This means starting your day not by reacting to your bank account or your inbox, but by stepping into the mindset of your wealthy self. How would they think? How would they make decisions? What would they say yes to? What would they say no to? When you begin operating from that level of clarity and confidence, the external world has no choice but to adjust. Identity is magnetic. People, circumstances, and opportunities begin to reorganize themselves to match your inner state. This is how transformation begins. Not with hustle, but with alignment. There's a reason why affirmations, vision boards, and goal setting often fall short. If they're layered on top of a limiting identity, they don't stick. You can tell yourself, I am rich 100 times a day. Your current circumstances beg you to give in to fear. The more you practice this, the more you develop emotional muscle. Eventually, what once felt forced becomes second nature. It's not about feeling happy all the time. It's about creating emotional congruence with what you want. If wealth means freedom to you, then generate the feeling of freedom now. If it means peace, then cultivate peace. If it means expansion, then feel expansive. The details don't matter as much as the essence. The universe doesn't speak in currency, it speaks in energy. When you learn to embody the emotional tone of your desired reality, you begin to collapse the distance between where you are and where you want to be. This emotional work is not passive, it's active. It requires you to tune in several times a day to check your internal compass, to ask yourself, what am I feeling right now, and does it match the reality I want to live? If not, you pause, you breathe, you recalibrate, you reach for a better feeling thought, not a fake one, but one that's just slightly more aligned. You don't need to leap from despair to joy in 1 second. Sometimes the shift is subtle, from worry to curiosity, from fear to openness, from lack to possibility. These small shifts matter. Over time, they build a new emotional foundation, and this foundation becomes your new identity, not because something changed outside, but because something shifted within. That's the paradox of manifestation. You don't wait for results to feel the feeling, you feel the feeling, and then the results find their way to you, not through force, but through resonance. You begin to magnetize, not chase. You begin to receive, not strive, and what once felt like fantasy begins to feel inevitable because you've already lived it 1,000 times in your mind and heart. The feeling is the secret. You've heard that phrase before, but now you understand what it means. Everything you want is not far from you, it's only a frequency away, and that frequency is accessed not by effort but by emotional alignment. So practice wealth daily, not just in thought but in feeling. Make it your emotional home, and soon the world will catch up to what you already know inside, that you are and always have been rich beyond measure. Chapter 4: You are the cause, not the effect. One of the most liberating and terrifying truths you can accept on this journey is that you are the cause of your reality, not partially, not occasionally, entirely. This means that the wealth, the opportunities, the obstacles, the breakthroughs, they are not accidents, they are not punishments, and they are not outside forces randomly assigned to you by luck or fate. They are reflections. Every experience you face is the outpicturing of something happening within you, whether it be a belief you carry, a feeling you dwell in, or an identity you have adopted. When you truly grasp this, you stop blaming circumstances and start transforming yourself. You begin to realize that you are not a leaf blown around by the winds of the world. You are the wind. Most people spend their lives reacting. They see their bank account, their bills, their external conditions, and they immediately draw conclusions about what is possible. They say things like, this is just how life is, or money doesn't come easily, or I'll be happy when things change. These statements reveal a passive stance, a mindset that treats life as something happening to them. But abundance doesn't flow to those who wait for permission. It flows to those who claim responsibility for the energy they emit and the assumptions they live by. You can't live in the end while blaming the beginning. You can't expect to manifest wealth while secretly believing that the economy, your past, or some external condition holds more power than you do. Taking full ownership of your reality is not about shame or guilt, it's about power. It means that you no longer need to beg life for change, you only need to change the signal you're sending out. If you've been living in scarcity, that doesn't mean you're broken or doomed. It means that your internal programming, often inherited or unconscious, is tuned to lack, but programming can be rewritten. That's what it means to live as the cause. You deliberately change the inner narrative, not because you're trying to force the outer world, but because you understand the outer world is an echo. It will reflect whatever frequency you give it. Your limitations, you no longer defend your struggle or make a case for why things can't change. You understand that those arguments only prolong what you don't want. Living as the cause means standing in the middle of your current situation, no matter how far it seems from your vision, and choosing to think and feel in alignment with the outcome you desire, not because the situation deserves that level of belief, but because you do. When you realize that every thought you think is either reinforcing or redefining your reality, you become incredibly selective with your focus. You stop letting old stories rent space in your mind. You stop repeating narratives that drain your energy and dilute your power. You begin to curate your inner world as carefully as someone curates their wardrobe, choosing only what aligns with who you are becoming in. This choice is constant living, as the cause is not a one-time decision, it is a moment awareness. It shows up when you decide not to complain even when you could. It shows up when you choose gratitude in the face of lack. It shows up when you walk into a room with your head held high, not because everything is perfect, but because you've chosen to embody the version of yourself that wealth naturally gravitates to. This is not about denial, it's about dominion. You are declaring that your inner state will no longer be held hostage by your temporary outer conditions. You are refusing to be reactive and choosing instead to be creative. Some will say this is unrealistic. They'll argue that you can't ignore reality, but what they miss is that what we call reality is always changing, always shifting, always moving in response to deeper patterns, and those patterns are shaped by, caused by consciousness. The very device you're reading this on began as an idea, a thought in someone's mind. That car on the road, that building in your city, that invention that changed the world, they all began invisibly. Everything you see today was once unseen, so why would your wealth be any different? To bring it into form, you must start where all creation begins. Living in the end requires you to let go of victimhood. Even if you've been wronged, even if your past is full of reasons to justify struggle, you have to decide whether you want to be right or free. Staying in the story of what went wrong might earn you sympathy, but it won't create change. That's not a judgment, it's a reality check. Power doesn't grow in the soil of blame, it grows in the light of awareness. When you realize you are the cause, you realize you can stop waiting for the world to give you permission and start creating the world that matches your vision. You may not control every event, but you always control your response, and your response is the beginning of creation. Will you respond from the old identity, from fear, from lack? Or will you respond from the self who knows they are already enough, already supported, already aligned with abundance? The choice may seem subtle, but it is everything. You are not here to react to the world, you are here to shape it. Chapter 5: Mental Rehearsal. Training the mind for abundance. The mind doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is vividly imagined. This is one of the most potent truths you can internalize on your path to wealth, and it is the cornerstone of mental rehearsal. What you consistently visualize, feel, and rehearse internally becomes the blueprint your subconscious uses to create your external world. Just as an athlete prepares for a competition not only through physical repetition but through vivid internal imagery, you too can prepare for your wealth by mentally rehearsing the reality you wish to experience. The outer results, no matter how big, always follow the inner performance, but most people rehearse the wrong things. They replay their fears, anticipate rejection, imagine struggle, and wonder why life keeps delivering it. They don't realize their mental habits are planting seeds for long enough and consistently enough to live as the cause means you no longer argue for quiets the noise of doubt. Fear often arises in the absence of clarity. When the future is vague, the mind fills it with worst-case scenarios, but when you have rehearsed your vision repeatedly, clarity replaces chaos. You know what success looks and feels like, you have lived it already, so when challenges appear you don't get derailed as easily. You return to your vision, you reconnect with the scene, you remember how it felt. That emotional anchor becomes your compass. It keeps you aligned while the world around you is still catching up. This practice does not require you to know every detail of how your wealth will arrive. In fact, trying to control every step often creates resistance. The point is not to map out every possible outcome, but to create a sensory-rich experience of the end result. Let the subconscious handle the bridge of events. Your job is to saturate your internal world with a reality so vivid, so emotionally true that it becomes more compelling than the limitations of your current surround you. Do not rehearse based on what is, you rehearse based on what will be, and in time that becomes what is. Mental rehearsal is not a luxury, it is a necessity for anyone serious about creating lasting change. Your outer world is simply the stage on which your inner rehearsals are eventually performed. The question is, what are you rehearsing? Are you mentally preparing for wealth, ease, success, and freedom? Or are you rehearsing struggle, doubt, and limitation? The mind is always practicing something. Make sure it's practicing your vision, not your fear. and as that vision becomes more real to you, don't be surprised when life starts behaving accordingly. Chapter 6: Faith over Facts. Stop worshipping the 3D. There comes a point on the path to abundance when you must decide what holds more authority in your life, the facts in front of you or the faith within you. The world will always offer evidence to keep you grounded in your current reality. It will show you your current bank balance, your monthly bills, the debts, the limitations, and the history that seems to define you. These are the facts, and they are not to be ignored, but they must not be warped. When you elevate the physical world to the status of ultimate truth, you become its servant. But faith is the declaration that your inner world holds more creative power than what you see, and until that becomes your dominant perspective, you will continue to react to life rather than create it. The 3D world, this physical dimension we interact with daily, is a delayed reflection of past thoughts, beliefs, and feelings. It is not the cause, it is the echo. Yet most people live as though it is the source of all possibility. They wait for the numbers to change before they feel wealthy. They wait for the call before they believe in the opportunity. They wait for the success before they allow themselves to relax. This is a trap. If you keep checking your reality to decide how to feel, you are handing over your creative power to a mirror, hoping that the reflection will change so you can smile. But the smile must come first. The reflection is only there to confirm what you already believe. Faith is not denial of the facts, it is awareness of a deeper truth. You can acknowledge your current situation without making it your identity. You can see a low balance and still affirm that wealth is your natural state. You can receive a rejection and still know that abundance is inevitable. Faith is the ability to hold your inner vision steady even as the outer world contradicts it, not because you are stubborn but because you understand how creation works. The world rearranges itself according to the dominant vibration you hold. If you are emotionally loyal to what is, you will only get more of it, but if you are emotionally loyal to what will be, eventually it must come into view. Living by faith doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities or pretending problems don't exist. It means you stop allowing those problems to define who you are or what is possible for you. You approach them from a higher frequency. You act with the mindset of someone who already knows the outcome is handled. This shift doesn't require you to feel powerful every second of the day. It requires you to return to your inner knowing every time you drift, because you will drift. The 3D world is loud. It demands your attention, but you must learn to look beyond it, not with your physical eyes, but with your spiritual vision. That vision sees potential, not just present form. You don't manifest by obsessing over what's not working. You manifest by tuning into what already is working in your favor. Internally, you begin to notice the quiet signs: your rising confidence, your expanding clarity, the way opportunities begin to show up without effort. These may not scream loudly at first, but they are signals that the shift has begun. Faith means staying anchored in those signs and ignoring the distractions that try to convince you otherwise. Most people lose their manifestation not because it wasn't working, but because they abandoned it too soon. They gave more weight to the delay than to the promise. They let facts override faith. If you've spent most of your life conditioned to respond to what's tangible, then this way of thinking will feel unnatural. At first, you've been trained to trust numbers, timelines, logic, but abundance is not logical. It flows where belief is strong and consistent. This is why someone with less talent but more conviction often succeeds more easily than someone with all the skills but no belief in themselves. Faith creates the structure that facts eventually fill in. It is the architecture of your future reality. Every time you choose to feel wealthy in the absence of evidence, you are building something invisible that is more real than the temporary conditions around you. Your current facts are not a life sentence, they are a snapshot, and snapshots change. A single decision, a new assumption, a sustained emotional state can completely rewrite your trajectory. But the rewriting does not begin in the 3D, it begins in the unseen, in thought, in feeling, in belief. That is where the real transformation happens. By the time it shows up in your life, it's already old news. So stop staring at your present reality as if it holds final authority. It doesn't. You do, and when you act from that authority, not arrogantly but with quiet confidence, you begin to experience what most never will: the unfolding of a life not defined by reaction but by intention. Faith is not weak, it is not passive, it is a fierce commitment to your vision, even when everything around you suggests you should give up. It is the refusal to downgrade your dream just because the timeline is longer than you expected. When you truly live in the end, faith is not something you try, it's who you are, it's how you breathe, and the facts will eventually have no choice but to align. With that version of you, Chapter 7, speak as if language that aligns with wealth. The language is not just communication, it is creation. Every word you speak reinforces a belief, confirms an identity, and broadcasts a frequency. Most people speak about their lives as if they are narrating their limitations, rehearsing lack, and giving voice to a reality they desperately wish to escape. They speak from where they are instead of where they are going. They tell stories of how hard it's been, how much they're struggling, how far away success seems, and then they wonder why nothing changes. But the truth is simple and often ignored. Your words are spells. What you speak consistently becomes the structure that your life builds upon. If you want to dwell in wealth, you must speak as someone who already lives there. This doesn't mean lying or pretending in a performative way. It means aligning your language with the assumption that your desires are already yours. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to make ends meet," say, "I'm learning to manage my wealth with greater ease every day." Instead of saying, "I can't afford that, try that's not a priority for me right now." Subtle changes, yes, but they matter. Words carry energy, and energy creates momentum. The more you talk about money as if it's scarce, the more your reality confirms that narrative. But when you speak from the perspective of someone who is already in flow with wealth, you begin to feel different, and that shift in feeling starts to reflect in your outer world. Pay attention to the small ways you betray your own abundance through casual language, jokes about being broke, complaints about bills, sarcastic remarks about the cost of things. These might seem harmless, but they're affirmations in disguise. Your subconscious does not differentiate between statements made in justice and those made in seriousness. It takes repetition as reality, and when you speak lack over and over, even as a joke, you etch that reality deeper into your energetic field. If your goal is to live in the end and embody the frequency of wealth, your language must be your ally, not your enemy. Start by becoming hyper-aware of the phrases you use most often. Do you say, "I can't, it's too hard, I'll never get ahead"? These phrases don't just express frustration, they reinforce it. They become your unconscious instructions to the universe. But if you start replacing them with language that implies progress, capability, and inevitability, you begin to train your mind to expect abundance rather than fight for it. Money flows to me with ease. Opportunities are always finding me. I trust my financial future. These are not just feel-good phrases, they are tools of transformation when spoken consistently and believed fully. They alter your mental and emotional baseline. This doesn't mean you never express frustration or deny your reality. It means you learn to speak from the version of you who already knows how the story ends. That version doesn't panic over a temporary setback. That version doesn't speak as if they're powerless. They choose their words carefully, not out of fear, but out of alignment. Their language reflects where they're headed, not where they've been, and because of that, life begins to rise to meet them. At that level, even in conversations with others, your language holds tremendous influence. When people ask how you're doing, you have a choice. You can default to stress and lack, or you can speak life into your vision. You can say, "I'm working through some things, but I'm excited about what's ahead." You can say, "I'm building something incredible." These small shifts not only change how others perceive you, they change how you perceive yourself. You begin to step more confidently into the identity of someone who expects good things, who talks like a leader, who sounds like someone wealth would feel safe with. One of the most powerful things you can do is speak your future into the present. Talk about the business as if it's already thriving. Describe your life as if the money is already there. Use gratitude for things that haven't appeared yet, but that you fully expect to. This kind of language is not delusional, it's directive. It tells your subconscious what to create, and your subconscious, obedient as ever, will begin to filter your perception, behavior, and opportunities to match the script you've given it. Living in the end means taking full responsibility for the words that leave your mouth. Every sentence is a choice. Do I want to reinforce scarcity or abundance? Do I want to argue for my limitations or my expansion? Words are not neutral, they are powerful creative forces. Once you understand this, casual complaining becomes a habit. You can no longer afford gossip, sarcasm, self-deprecation. They lose their appeal when you realize the cost. Instead, you choose words that empower, uplift, and align. You speak as someone who trusts the process. You speak as someone who knows that wealth is not a matter of if, but when. This kind of intentional speech creates a field around you that others can feel. It draws people in, it opens doors, it builds momentum. It makes you magnetic to the very things you desire, because when your words, feelings, and actions all say the same thing, that you are already living in the end. Life responds with the only answer it can give: yes. Chapter 8. Surround yourself with wealth vibes. The environments you dwell in, both physically and mentally, are constantly shaping your perception of what is possible, whether you are conscious of it or not. Your surroundings send you messages about your identity, your worth, and your future. If those messages are rooted in lack, struggle, or survival, then no matter how committed you are internally to abundance, the world around you will keep echoing a reality that contradicts your desire. That's why living in the end doesn't stop at affirmations or visualization. It extends to the very atmosphere you curate for yourself. You must learn to surround yourself with wealth vibes, not as a performance, but as a declaration of who you are becoming and what you are already aligned with. Everything carries a frequency, including your space, the items in your home, the conversations you engage in, the images you expose yourself to. They either reinforce the future you're living into or pull you back into old patterns. Most people underestimate the influence of the environments they settle for. They keep things that remind them of scarcity, tolerate relationships that drain their energy, and allow noise and chaos to dominate their internal landscape. But when you're truly committed to wealth consciousness, you start treating your environment like sacred ground. You clear the clutter, not just to be organized, but to make room for prosperity. You surround yourself with symbols of your future life, not in desperate hope, but in calm expectancy. You begin to carry yourself as someone who already belongs to that elevated reality. This might look like replacing worn-down items with things that make you feel abundant, even if they're simple. It might mean upgrading your wardrobe in small, intentional ways that reflect the energy of success you're stepping into. It might mean choosing to eat your meals with mindfulness and gratitude, even if they're modest, because it's not about the cost, it's about the consciousness. Wealth is not measured only by what you spend, but by how you carry yourself in every moment. When you light a candle, clean your workspace, play music that lifts your spirit, or dress with care, even when no one's watching, you are saying to the universe, I am ready, I am here, I am not waiting anymore to feel like the person I aspire to be. Surrounding yourself with wealth vibes also means being intentional about the people you allow into your space. Conversations are environments. 2 words are environments. If you spend time around people who constantly speak of limitation, fear, and doubt, no matter how grounded you think you are, that energy seeps into your system. It subtly reinforces the idea that struggle is normal, that dreams are risky, and that wealth is for others. This doesn't mean cutting everyone off or judging those around you. It means drawing clear, energetic boundaries. You can love someone and still protect your vision. You can support others without absorbing their patterns, and you can choose to spend more time in environments, physical or digital, that lift you higher, that challenge you to grow, that normalize abundance rather than distance you from it. Wealth vibes are also found in what you consume, the books you read, the shows you watch, the social media accounts you follow. They are all contributing to your mental environment. Are you feeding your mind with stories of expansion or narratives of despair? Are you watching people who inspire you or those who trigger your insecurities? Be ruthless in your curation, not because you are fragile, but because you're intentional. You're not just surviving anymore, you're sculpting a new identity, one that aligns with a version of reality where wealth is natural, easeful, and expansive. That process requires discipline. It requires saying no to what numbs you and yes to what builds you. As your environment shifts, so will your behavior. When you walk into a space that feels abundant, you naturally act with more clarity and confidence. When your daily rituals are infused with presence and purpose, you begin to feel like someone who is already living the life they once dreamed of. This is not about aesthetics or materialism. It's about creating resonance. Your outer world becomes a mirror to your inner world, and the more harmonious they become, the faster your manifestations unfold. You don't have to wait for wealth to show up to live as someone who is wealthy. You can decide today that your space, your time, your words, and your energy are too precious to be spent on anything that contradicts your vision. Living in the end requires you to immerse yourself in the energy of where you're going. You must feel it, speak it, walk it, and yes, surround yourself with it. When you do, you send a clear, unwavering signal, this is my new reality, and the universe, faithful to the frequency you hold, will begin to arrange itself in response. Wealth doesn't arrive in chaos, it arrives where it feels welcomed, expected, and respected. So create a life it wants to land in, not someday. Now, Chapter 9: The Wealth Frequency. Raising your energetic baseline. Wealth is not just an amount of money, it is a frequency, it is a state of being, a vibration that emanates from the inside out long before you see wealth in your external life. You feel it, you live it internally, you align with it energetically, and once that frequency becomes your baseline, life begins to reflect it with startling consistency. Most people focus on how to make more, save more, or find more opportunities, but few take the time to examine what frequency they are actually radiating, what emotional and mental patterns they are unconsciously repeating, and how those patterns keep recreating the same financial experiences again and again. If your internal state is anchored in scarcity, no amount of action will override that vibration for long. The results might come, but they won't last. That's because your energy always returns to your dominant frequency, the baseline you've trained yourself to operate from. Your energetic baseline is the emotional climate you live in most of the time, not the occasional high after hearing good news or the temporary confidence that comes from a short-term win, but the consistent hum of energy that shapes your expectations, your reactions, your decisions. For some, that baseline is anxiety, worry, and fear around money. For others, it's control, tension, or guilt. And for those who have learned to live in the end, who have trained their systems to dwell in abundance, the baseline becomes calm, open, expectant, and grateful. The goal is not to fake this energy, but to elevate it through conscious practice until it becomes your new normal. Because when wealth feels normal to your nervous system, your life has no choice but to adjust. Raising your energetic baseline does not mean forcing yourself to feel positive all the time. It means learning how to self-regulate, how to return to alignment when you wobble, how to build emotional stamina so that wealth no longer feels foreign or fragile. You do this through repetition, intention, and a deep willingness to observe yourself without judgment. Every time you feel triggered by a bill, an unexpected expense, or a financial delay, you have a choice. You can spiral into the old story and feed it, or you can pause, breathe, and shift. The more often you choose the latter, the more you train your body to associate money with peace instead of panic. That shift is foundational. It rewrites your internal association with wealth, and that rewriting is what allows wealth to flow in more easily because it no longer meets resistance. One of the simplest ways to raise your wealth frequency is to start identifying and replacing the low-frequency habits you've normalized: complaining, self-doubt, comparison, envy. These may seem like minor habits, but they are vibrational leaks. They pull you out of alignment with wealth. High-frequency living requires vigilance, not perfection. It requires you to catch yourself in those moments and ask, what would the wealthy version of me think right now? What would they believe? What would they focus on? The answers to those questions are not theoretical, they are practical keys. They reveal the next step in your emotional evolution, and as you respond more and more from that higher place, your baseline lifts, your energy sharpens, and your outer life begins to move. This process also means letting go of familiar discomfort. Many people unknowingly feel safer in struggle than in success. Struggle is known, it has rules, rhythms, and social validation, but abundance, ease, and overflow can feel destabilizing if your identity has never fully embraced them. So as your frequency rises, you may notice parts of you resisting the very thing you asked for. That is not failure, that is recalibration. It's your system adjusting to a new standard, and your job is not to fight the resistance, but to hold the frequency anyway, to stay loyal to the vision, even as your body and mind renegotiate what is safe, what is possible, what is deserved. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools in this recalibration, not forced gratitude, not hollow affirmations, but genuine appreciation for what is already flowing to you. Gratitude trains your nervous system to recognize abundance. It expands your awareness. It lifts you out of lack and places you in the energy of enough, and from enough more is born. When you live in the frequency of gratitude, you don't wait for life to impress you. You start impressing upon life. The energy you choose to hold, that shift makes you magnetic. People, ideas, solutions, and money begin to respond to you differently, not because you're working harder, but because you're vibrating higher. Raising your energetic baseline is not something you do once, it's a lifestyle. It's how you wake up, how you respond to stress, how you speak to yourself in private, how you hold your posture when no one is watching. It's a commitment to being the version of you who already has what you want, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. It's a refusal to settle back into old Frequencies just because they're familiar, and it's a willingness to stand in a new energy until the world around you reflects it. You don't attract what you wish for, you attract what you are in harmony with. So if you want more wealth, don't start by changing the outer world, start by tuning your inner world to the frequency of abundance. Raise the baseline, sustain it, let it become your emotional home, and then let the rest of your life rise to meet you there. Chapter 10: The Power of Assumed Completion. There is a profound difference between wanting something and assuming it is already yours. Most people live in a constant state of wanting. They think they're manifesting, but what they're really doing is reinforcing the absence of their desire. They keep rehearsing thoughts like, I hope this happens, I wish things were different, or maybe one day I'll have what I want. These thoughts are wrapped in a vibration of completion, of distance, of lack, and while the words might sound optimistic, the frequency they carry tells a different story. The subconscious hears those repeated phrases and internalizes one message: it's not here yet. And because the subconscious governs your behavior, your decisions, and your energy output, that message becomes your lived reality. You don't get what you want, you get what you assume is already finished. Assume completion is the subtle, powerful state of consciousness where your desire is no longer a future event, it's a present reality in your inner world. You no longer hope it arrives, you know it has arrived. You feel the emotional finality of it. You rest in the satisfaction of already being that version of yourself who has, who owns, who lives the life you once desired. This isn't about acting or pretending, it's about shifting your inner stance from pursuit to possession. When you walk through your day with that quiet confidence, when you make decisions from the perspective of already having, life responds differently. You begin to move as someone who has nothing to prove, nothing to chase. Your energy softens, your mind clears, and you create space for the manifestation to unfold without resistance. This concept of completion challenges everything society teaches us about success. We're taught to work hard, to grind, to fight for our goals, but that mindset often comes with an undertone of striving and scarcity. It's based on the belief that something essential is missing. Living from assumed completion doesn't mean you stop taking action, it means you stop acting from the desperation of lack and start acting from the calm of certainty. Your actions become more aligned, more intentional, and often more effective. You don't need to hustle your way into results because you're no longer driven by fear, you're guided by the conviction that what you've claimed internally must now materialize externally. Assumed completion is what makes affirmations truly work. It's not enough to repeat words, the words must carry the emotional weight of truth. When you say, I am wealthy, do you say it with a question mark or a period? Do you feel it land in your body? Or do you feel a tug of resistance underneath it? That resistance reveals where you're still operating from the old frequency. But when you say it and your body relaxes, when your heart rate slows and your shoulders drop, that's assumed completion. That's when the statement is no longer a hope, it's a declaration. It's already done. You're simply catching up with what already exists in the unseen. This mindset becomes a powerful anchor during times when results seem delayed. Most people waver during the waiting period. They interpret the silence as failure, and they abandon their alignment just before the shift would have occurred. But those who practice assumed completion understand the delay is irrelevant. They don't need constant signs to believe the belief is complete. The feeling is already fulfilled. That state of internal arrival is more magnetic than any checklist or strategy. It holds you steady when the outside world is quiet. It gives you permission to enjoy the unfolding rather than anxiously measure the timeline. You might wonder how to maintain assumed completion when your external world shows no evidence of change. The answer lies in practice. You return to the vision daily. You revisit the feeling of the outcome already realized. You speak from the end, you act from the end. You stop describing yourself as someone who is becoming and begin describing yourself as someone who already is. This is not delusion, it's a deliberate use of the imagination, a faculty that is far more powerful than logic. When it comes to creating new realities, your imagination is your preview of life's coming attractions, and when you dwell in it consistently with belief, the line between the imagined and the actual begins to dissolve. Living in assumed completion also means releasing the obsessive need to monitor or control the how. When something is complete, you don't keep checking on it, you don't dig it up to see if it's growing, you allow it, you trust it, you live in the ease of knowing that what's yours cannot miss you. This inner calm is not laziness, it is maturity, it is spiritual confidence. It tells the universe, I no longer operate on prob or operate on certainty, I know who I am. And I know what is mine. That knowing becomes your signal, and That signal attracts everything aligned with it. You've already lived the struggle of wanting, of trying, of doubting. Assumed completion invites you into a new chapter where your energy is no longer split. You're not waiting, you're receiving. You're not begging life to respond. You're recognizing that it already has. You're simply aligning with what has always been yours and allowing it to arrive in form on time as expected. Chapter 11: Daily Rituals. For a wealth mindset, wealth is not just an event or an outcome. It is a state of being, and like any state of being, it must be cultivated through repetition. Most people expect transformation to come through sudden breakthroughs or big shifts, but the truth is that your life is shaped by what you do consistently, the thoughts you entertain each morning, the emotions you nurture, the words you speak, and the choices you make daily are the true architects of your reality. If you are not tending to these habits, then you are leaving your wealth mindset to chance. Living in the end, embodying the identity of someone who is already wealthy, demands structure, not the kind that boxes you in, but the kind that liberates your energy from distraction and chaos. It is in the seemingly small rituals that your internal world is trained to receive and sustain abundance. The first few moments of your day are some of the most powerful for setting your frequency. When you wake up, your mind is still in a receptive, suggestible state. This is not the time to reach for your phone, to dive into news or notifications that pull you into a reactive mode. This is the moment to claim the energy of your future self. Begin your day by speaking as that version of you who is already financially free. You can do this silently or out loud, but it should feel grounded and certain. I am fully supported. Money flows to me consistently. I operate from peace, confidence, and expansion. These are not just words, they are instructions to your subconscious. Repeat them until they begin to feel like your natural thoughts. With time, they will be. Movement is another powerful ritual, not just for the body, but for the mind. Whether it's a walk, a stretch, or a full workout, moving your body each day reinforces the energy of momentum and flow. As you move, visualize, see yourself walking into the life you've imagined. Feel yourself arriving. Let your body begin to associate movement with abundance. The mind and body are not separate. When your body experiences ease and strength, your mind follow. This connection can be harnessed to anchor the wealth frequency deeper into your identity. One of the most effective rituals you can adopt is intentional visualization. Set aside 10 minutes a day to close your eyes and mentally rehearse your wealthy life in vivid detail. Don't rush it, slow down, and feel the texture of the experiences. Imagine checking your account and seeing overflow. Picture your ideal day filled with time, freedom, joy, and meaningful work. Let the emotions of that reality flood your system. This is not a fantasy, it's neural conditioning. You are training your subconscious to expect what you previously believed was out of reach. The more often you do this, the more normal it begins to feel. And when it feels normal, it becomes achievable. Gratitude is another non-negotiable, but it's not just about listing things you're thankful for. It's about feeling the frequency of abundance through the lens of appreciation. Each day, write down at least 5 things you are grateful for, not just things you have, but things that are arriving, things you're holding space for. I'm grateful for the money that's flowing to me now. I'm grateful for the opportunities aligning in my favor. I'm grateful for the version of me who chose to believe before the evidence appeared. Gratitude for the unseen anchors you in the energy of faith, and that faith collapses the time between desire and manifestation. You must also create sacred boundaries around your mind. Your mental diet, what you read, watch, and consume matters. Instead of filling your downtime with mindless scrolling or negative commentary, choose input that nourishes your vision. Read books that reinforce abundance. Listen to voices that remind you of your power. Speak with people who support your expansion, not your fear. Your environment must echo your end result. If it doesn't, you are constantly being pulled back into a vibration that doesn't match your destiny. A wealth mindset cannot thrive in emotional poverty, and your daily input is either feeding your faith or feeding your doubt. Even how you handle money today is part of the ritual. Don't treat your current finances with disdain just because they don't reflect your ideal, yet respect the money you have. Organize it, track it, bless it when it comes in, and when it goes out, create order, because wealth loves clarity. The way you handle small amounts is the training ground for larger sums. If you're chaotic now, you'll be chaotic later, just with bigger numbers. A wealthy identity isn't built after the money arrives, it's built long before in the way you think, feel, and behave around every transaction, and every dollar. Evenings are just as important. End your day by reviewing it not through criticism but through the eyes of your higher self. Celebrate what you did well, forgive what you didn't, reconnect with your vision before you sleep, because your subconscious processes your dominant thoughts overnight. Fall asleep in the feeling of wealth. Let that emotional signature imprint into your consciousness so that when you wake up your default setting is aligned with your end goal. Wealth doesn't arrive in chaos, it arrives where it is welcomed, expected, and respected. These daily rituals may seem simple, even obvious, but what makes them powerful is consistency. Anyone can journal once, visualize once, or speak a few affirmations, but the ones who live in the end make these actions a lifestyle. They don't do them to get something, they do them because it's who they are now. It becomes a natural expression of their identity, and when identity aligns with intention, manifestation becomes inevitable. Chapter 12: Overcoming doubt and resistance. Doubt is not the enemy of success, it is a natural part of growth. It arises every time you step into a version of yourself that contradicts your past. The same is true of resistance. It shows up when your subconscious begins to feel the tension between who you've been and who you're becoming. Most people interpret these experiences as signs to slow down, turn back, or abandon the path altogether. They mistake internal friction for failure, but the truth is that doubt and resistance are not signals that you're off course. They are proof that your inner system is recalibrating to live in the end. To dwell in the feeling of wealth before it arrives is to expect these forces and know exactly what to do when they appear. The moment you declare a new reality: financial freedom, abundance, overflow, you are also summoning the unconscious stories that oppose it. You are lighting up all the old assumptions that have lived quietly beneath the surface. Stories like, I'm not good with money, rich people are greedy, or I don't deserve more than I need. These beliefs don't vanish just because you set a new intention. They rise to the surface so they can be witnessed and dissolved. The problem is that when people feel doubt, they start to believe it. They confuse it with truth, but doubt is not truth. It is the echo of an old identity fighting to stay alive. When you recognize this, you stop giving it so much authority. You begin to observe it, not obey it. Resistance can take many forms. It might show up as procrastination, avoidance, mood swings, or even sudden physical exhaustion right after you've done a visualization or made a powerful decision. This isn't a coincidence, it's your subconscious mind pulling you back toward familiarity. The subconscious is designed to keep you safe, not successful, and safety to the subconscious means whatever is known and predictable. If you've lived most of your life in survival mode, then abundance feels threatening, not because it's bad, but because it's different. Your body and mind will resist even what you say you want if they associate it with uncertainty. Understanding this dynamic is crucial. It allows you to stop taking resistance personally and instead approach it with patience and curiosity. To overcome doubt and resistance, you must first stop fighting them. The more you resist resistance, the stronger it becomes. Instead, learn to meet it with awareness. When the doubts come, don't rush to push them away. Ask yourself what story they're attached to, what fear are they echoing, what belief are they trying to protect. This level of self-inquiry helps you disarm the pattern. It allows you to choose differently. You no longer react automatically, you respond consciously, and in that space of response you reclaim your power. One of the most effective ways to shift out of doubt is to reconnect with your vision in emotional terms, not just intellectual ones. You may logically understand what you want, but logic rarely moves the needle when fear is active. Feeling does. Emotion is the language of the subconscious. When you feel the end result, even for a few moments, you disrupt the momentum of doubt. This is not about faking positivity, it's about returning to the frequency of truth. You can say, even though I feel afraid right now, I still choose to believe. That one sentence can soften the grip of resistance. It gives you room to breathe. It honors where you are without surrendering to it. Another key practice is to stop seeking constant proof. The need for proof is the offspring of doubt. If you find yourself constantly checking your progress, rereading your affirmations to see if they're working, or needing signs that your manifestation is close, you are feeding resistance with your attention. Real belief doesn't beg for evidence, it generates it. When you truly live in the end, you no longer demand that the outside world reassure you. You carry your own reassurance within. This creates stability. It allows you to move through resistance without drama. You notice it, acknowledge it, and keep going. Your nervous system plays a huge role in all of this. If you are constantly in fight or flight mode, trying to force change or control every detail, your body will associate abundance with pressure. But when you Create rituals of calm, deep breathing. Intentional silence, mindful movement. You signal to your system that the expansion is safe. You begin to create new neurological associations. You teach your body that wealth doesn't mean danger, it means ease, and from that space doubt begins to lose its grip, not because it stops trying, but because you've trained yourself not to follow it. The truth is doubt and resistance are part of the process for everyone. The difference between those who succeed and those who quit is not that the successful never feel doubt, it's that they don't obey it, they see it, name it, and move anyway. They've learned that resistance is often loudest just before the breakthrough, that the mind kicks and screams the most right before a new reality becomes dominant. So they hold the vision, they stay in the energy of completion, they continue to speak, act, and feel from the end, even when the old patterns try to reassert themselves. Overcoming doubt and resistance is not about becoming someone else, it's about becoming more loyal to your vision than to your fear. It's about choosing to dwell in the vibration of what you want even when your emotions are unstable or your circumstances look the same. That choice made daily is what rewires you. That decision practiced consistently is what makes the impossible inevitable. Chapter 13. When nothing happens, keep living. In the end, there is a unique kind of silence that tests the depth of your belief more than any external challenge ever could. It is the silence that follows your declaration of change, your commitment to a new reality, your decision to live. In the end, you visualized, affirmed, aligned your actions, and felt the emotions of your desired future, and yet nothing, no signs, no shifts, no evidence. This is the moment that separates those who manifest from those who wish, because what you do in the silence is what determines what will eventually take form. It is easy to believe when results are visible. It is natural to trust when progress is obvious, but true power is cultivated when you can continue to live in the end fully and faithfully. When the outer world remains unchanged, most people retreat. When they don't see immediate results, they begin to question their methods, their timing, their worth. They fall back into old emotional patterns, choosing doubt because doubt feels familiar. They believe something must be wrong because nothing seems to be happening, but that conclusion is rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of how manifestation works. What appears to be stillness is often sacred reorganization. The unseen elements of your desire are being moved, aligned, and prepared in ways you cannot perceive. The silence is not proof that nothing is happening. It is an invitation to deepen your embodiment, to stay steady, to hold the vibration longer than you ever have before. This is the realm of real faith, not blind hope, but embodied certainty. Faith is not about ignoring reality. It's about understanding that reality is a lagging indicator. It trails behind your inner state, sometimes by days, sometimes by months. The wealth, the opportunity, the transformation, it begins within you the moment you fully claim it. The outer world takes time to adjust, not because it resists you, but because it is bound by form, time, and structure. What you must understand is that the silence is not passive, it is not empty, it is filled with the echoes of your energy bouncing through space, seeking the fastest and most coherent path to return to you in material form. This is where so many give up too soon. They misinterpret the pause as a denial, but nothing could be further from the truth. The pause is often where the most powerful shifts are occurring beneath the surface. Think of the seed that has been planted for days, weeks, even months. Nothing is visible above the soil, but underground roots are growing, anchoring, expanding. If you judge the seed by its visible progress alone, you would assume failure. Yet in truth, it is right on time. The same is true of your desires. They are growing in the dark, taking root in unseen dimensions, preparing for their inevitable emergence. And your job is not to rush the process. Your job is to trust it. Living in the end, when nothing seems to be happening, is a radical act of emotional discipline. It means choosing the frequency of completion, even when the world reflects incompletion. It means acting like the person who already has the result, even when the circumstances haven't caught up. You continue to make decisions. From that elevated state, you continue to speak from it, move from it, rest in it, not because you're being delusional, but because you understand the laws that govern creation. When you remain in alignment with the end result, you become unshakable. You are no longer subject to the highs and lows of temporary appearances. You are rooted in the unseen truth that what is yours is already on its way. This practice also requires you to be vigilant against emotional shortcuts when the silence stretches you. may be tempted to reach for external validation to force outcomes to hustle out of insecurity, but that only disrupts the energetic integrity of your manifestation. It pulls you out of the state of already having and back into the vibration of needing, lacking, and waiting. You cannot force what you are meant to receive through alignment. The moment you try to manipulate the timing or the method, you shift the energy from trust to fear. And fear, even when dressed as strategy, sends a signal of disconnection from the end result. So instead of grasping, you return to stillness, you return to the vision, you feel the wealth again as if it were already yours, and you let that feeling be enough. Some of the most miraculous manifestations occur when you stop watching the clock, when you stop asking, when you stop checking your progress like a delivery tracking number. Real transformation happens when you lose yourself in the identity of the person who already lives the life you want. You become so consistent in that energy that the absence of physical evidence no longer bothers you. In fact, you begin to enjoy the wait, not as a delay but as a sacred unfold. You know it's coming, you feel it in your bones, and that certainty becomes your new home. So when nothing is happening, keep living in the end, keep showing up as if it's already done, keep anchoring into the vibration of wealth, peace, and ease. This is not false confidence, it is spiritual mastery. It is the understanding that the universe does not respond to urgency or desperation, it responds to resonance, and when your internal world vibrates with the frequency of completion, you are no longer waiting, you are welcoming, and that shift, subtle as it may seem, is the doorway through which everything you've ever asked for arrives. Chapter 14: Money as an extension of your energy. To truly live in the end and embody lasting wealth, you must completely redefine your relationship with money. You must come to understand that money is not a source of power, fear, stress, or salvation. It is simply an extension of your energy. It reflects your beliefs, your intentions, your frequency, and most importantly, your sense of self-worth. It doesn't create who you are, it reveals who you believe yourself to be. This shift in understanding is not just philosophical, it is deeply practical until you begin to see money as neutral, as responsive, as emotionally and energetically linked to your inner world. You will continue to chase it from a place of separation rather than attracted through alignment. Most people carry around unconscious emotions and stories about money. They've inherited beliefs that money is hard to get, that wanting more is greedy, that success is only for a few, or that they must trade their time, peace, or integrity to earn it. These beliefs don't just shape thoughts, they shape behavior. They lead to self-sabotage, undercharging, overwork, hoarding, overspending, or avoiding money altogether. But all of these behaviors are just symptoms. The root lies in a disconnection between who they are and what they believe they are worthy of receiving. When you shift that belief, when you begin to see yourself as inherently worthy of overflow, money starts to respond differently, not because the economy changed, but because your energy did. If money is an extension of your energy, then the way you treat it reveals how you treat yourself. Do you avoid looking at it because it makes you uncomfortable? Do you spend it to escape emotions or prove something to others? Do you resent those who have more or believe they must have done something wrong to earn it? These patterns are not about money, they're about identity. When you carry guilt around having money or shame about not having enough, you're creating friction in your ability to let it flow. Energy thrives in clarity and openness. When you respect money, care for it, and welcome it without emotional charge, you create a channel through which more can flow. One of the most liberating realizations is that money responds to your level of consciousness. It gravitates toward clarity, purpose, alignment, and confidence. It pulls away from confusion, scarcity, resentment, and fear. This doesn't mean that only positive people make money. Many don't understand these principles and still generate wealth through effort or manipulation, but those who are conscious and aligned not only attract money but are able to sustain and expand it without burnout. They are in right relationship with it. They don't need to cling to it or chase it. It becomes a tool, not a tormentor, a partner, not a problem. You must also understand that money doesn't change your frequency, it amplifies it. If you're already operating from fear, more money won't give you peace. If you feel unworthy now, receiving more will only increase the discomfort unless you shift that belief first. That's why living in the end isn't just about imagining wealth, it's about practicing the emotional and energetic state that you believe money will give you. If you think wealth will make you feel free, then practice freedom now. If you think it will give you power, connect to your inner power today. The external only mirrors the internal. If you wait for money to shift your energy, you're handing over your power to something that should have no authority over who you are. Once you see money as an extension of your energy, your approach to it becomes more intentional. You stop using it to impress or numb or chase validation you begin to make. Financial decisions that reflect your values, your vision, and your worth. You no longer settle for transactions that feel heavy or out of integrity. You become generous not to prove anything, but because generosity feels like your natural state. You receive with grace, you spend with joy, you invest with clarity, and all of it flows because you are no longer trying to manipulate the energy. You are living in harmony with it. This shift also changes how you see other people's wealth instead of comparison or envy. You recognize that their abundance is simply a reflection of the energy they've embodied. You see it as a mirror, not a threat. Their success doesn't diminish yours, it reveals what's possible. And if their energy can call in wealth, so can yours. This mindset eliminates the illusion of competition. It dissolves the fear that there's not enough to go around. You realize that money is infinite because energy is infinite, and as long as you're in alignment with your truth, there is no limit to what can flow to you. When you start treating money as energy, you become less reactive. You stop panicking when an unexpected expense arises. You stop shrinking when a goal takes longer than expected. You begin to move through financial experiences with the same steadiness you would approach any energetic shift. You ask yourself, where is my focus? What am I feeling? What belief is active right now? And then you return to alignment, not just mentally, but emotionally. You stop leaking energy through stress and instead redirect it into intention. From that space, your financial world begins to organize itself in surprising ways. Opportunities show up, solutions appear, the pressure lifts, not because you forced it, but because you finally became a match for ease. Money is not the root of all evil, nor is it the source of all happiness. It is simply an amplifier. It follows energy. It flows where it feels welcomed, respected, and matched in frequency. When you live in the end and embody wealth, now you begin to see money not as a distant prize, but as a natural reflection of your inner state, and from that place wealth stops being a destination and becomes a way of being. Chapter 15: The Silent Shift. How reality reorganizes itself. The most significant transformations often happen quietly. There are no fireworks, no immediate signs, no applause, just a subtle shift, almost imperceptible, in how you carry yourself, how you respond to life, how you think when no one is watching. When you live in the end, when you truly dwell in the identity of the person who already has everything they've asked for, reality doesn't always respond with a dramatic flash. More often it reorganizes itself gradually and methodically behind the scenes, moving pieces into place that you may not recognize as progress. This is the nature of real manifestation. It begins in the invisible, and it builds silently until what was once imagined becomes impossible to ignore. People expect signs, they want proof that it's working, they search for synchronicities, obsess over small wins, and constantly scan their environment for confirmation. But this obsession with evidence can delay what they're trying to call in, because true manifestation doesn't unfold under pressure, it unfolds in alignment. The more relaxed and certain you are, the more space you create for the subtle shifts to occur. These shifts may look like a sudden idea that pops into your mind during a quiet moment. They may look like someone reaching out unexpectedly. They may feel like an intuitive nudge to go somewhere, say something, or finally let go of what's no longer serving you. At first glance, they may seem unrelated to your desire, but when you trace them back, you begin to see how perfectly timed they were. Reality is far more malleable than most believe, but it requires coherence. The version of you who lives in scarcity cannot exist in the same energetic space as the version of you who lives in abundance. So when you commit to a new identity, when you begin to embody the frequency of wealth, peace, or freedom, life starts to move in response. Sometimes this means releasing relationships, jobs, habits, or environments that are no longer in harmony with the new self you've claimed. These moments can feel like loss, but they are actually alignment in motion. They are the removal of what doesn't fit so that what does can finally enter, and this clearing process often happens in silence, without warning, and without your conscious control. One of the most powerful silent shifts is how you begin to interpret events. What used to feel like rejection now feels like redirection. What once triggered anxiety now becomes a chance to practice alignment. This isn't because the world has changed, it's because your perception has changed. You're no longer taking everything personally. You're no longer viewing setbacks as permanent. You've shifted from victim to creator, and that alone reorganizes the frequency you live in. And because of that shift, new opportunities begin to appear not because you chased them but because you finally became the version of yourself who could receive them. Another silent shift is in your self-trust. You stop second-guessing your intuition. You stop asking for permission. You start making decisions from clarity instead of confusion. You're no longer trying to please everyone or prove your worth. You've internalized the feeling of already being enough, already having, already becoming this. Confidence is not loud, but it is unmistakable. People can sense it. Circumstances respond to it. It creates a ripple effect that influences everything around you, your relationships, your income, your health, your sense of fulfillment, and yet from the outside it may look like nothing has changed. This is the paradox. The greatest changes are often invisible before they are undeniable. Living in the end is not about dramatic effort, it's about subtle alignment, the kind that happens in the quiet moments when no one else is paying attention. It's about choosing the higher thought, the better feeling, the calmer reaction again and again until it becomes who you are. That repetition builds momentum. That momentum shifts timelines. Reality begins to fold around your vibration, not instantly but reliably. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. Anyone can feel good for a few minutes, but those who sustain the frequency long enough to override the past are the ones who experience lasting change. You will not always know what is shifting while it's shifting, and that is where your trust must become deeper than your fear. It must become stronger than your impatience. The absence of immediate results is not failure, it's often refinement. The universe is not ignoring you, it's preparing you. It's responding to your dominant energy, not your temporary emotions. So when you feel like nothing is happening, ask yourself, who am I becoming? What am I broadcasting? Am I still dwelling in the end, or have I allowed the silence to pull me back into doubt? These are the questions that bring you back to power. These are the reflections that keep you steady as the invisible begins to take form. The silent shifts are sacred. They are the threads being woven beneath the surface, the quiet corrections, the unspoken breakthroughs. Trust them. Even when it seems like nothing is happening, everything is the work you've done, the energy you've held, the identity you've embodied. It is not wasted, it is accumulating, it is organizing, it is preparing the way for your reality to mirror what your soul has already accepted as truth. You don't need to know the how, you only need to continue living as if it's done. The rest is unfolding. Chapter 16, letting go without giving up. One of the most misunderstood principles in manifestation and living in the end is the concept of letting go. People often interpret letting go as detachment in the form of emotional withdrawal or giving up entirely, as if they must release their desire to prove they're not attached. They think that to let go means to stop caring, to act indifferent, or to move on altogether. But letting go is not about abandoning your desire, it's about releasing the need for it. It's about softening your grip and stepping out of the frantic energy that tries to control the outcome. It is not a resignation, it's a refinement. It's the moment you surrender the pressure while still holding the vision. You don't stop believing, it's just that belief becomes calm, settled, and steady. When you let go in this way, you are not giving up the desire, you are giving up the anxiety wrapped around it. You are releasing the idea that your wholeness or happiness is dependent on whether it manifests by a certain date, in a certain way, or through a certain person. Letting go is trusting the intelligence of life, trusting that what you've already claimed within is on its way, and that the mechanism of delivery is not your concern. That doesn't mean you stop visualizing or affirming or acting. It means you do so from a place of wholeness instead of a place of seeking. You are no longer using your desire to escape the present. You are choosing to feel fulfilled now, even as the outer evidence lags behind. Living in the end requires you to hold two states at once: clarity of intention and ease of energy. You must be specific in your vision but relaxed in your attachment. That duality is where true power lives. It's where you say, "This is mine," and yet you don't need to chase it. It's when you know what's coming, so you stop overthinking. How the challenge for many is that they equate control with certainty. They believe that the more they push, the faster it will arrive, but control is always a signal of mistrust, and mistrust is a repellent. It sends the signal that you believe life won't deliver unless you force it, but life doesn't respond to force, it responds to frequency, and frequency is clearest when you've released the noise of desperation. Letting go without giving up also means allowing your path to unfold in ways you didn't anticipate. We often try to script every detail of our journey, believing that only one version of the outcome will be good enough. But that insistence can become a limitation. The universe is far more creative than our plans. When you hold your desires with open hands, you leave room for life to surprise you, to exceed what you thought was possible, to deliver something that matches the vibration even more perfectly than your original idea. You don't lower your standards, you expand your flexibility. You don't stop visualizing, you stop obsessing. You don't stop moving, you stop micromanaging the unfolding. This is a more mature form of faith. It no longer begs or bargains. It no longer questions its worthiness. It stands in the energy of I am already the person who lives this life. I don't need it to prove anything. I don't need it to validate me. I simply welcome it. This posture is not passive, it's potent. It doesn't signal apathy, it signals alignment. You're not giving up the desire. You're giving up the resistance around it. You're giving up the tension that says, I must have this to feel complete. Because the moment you stop needing it is often the moment it starts moving faster toward you. Letting go is also about releasing the identity that is addicted to struggle. For some, chasing goals is more familiar than receiving results. They're more comfortable in pursuit than in fulfillment. So letting go becomes threatening. It feels like losing purpose. But the truth is that letting go is an invitation to relax into receiving, to make space for arrival, to allow yourself to live in the reality that you've rehearsed so many times. You can still be intentional, you can still show up, but the energy underneath is softer, more trusting, less frantic. That shift is magnetic. It creates space, and space is necessary for wealth, for opportunity, for love, for anything you want to land and stay. Letting go without giving up is also an act of emotional intelligence. It's recognizing that emotions will rise: impatience, doubt, fear, and letting them move through you without reacting from them. You learn to witness your inner weather without losing your position in the timeline you've chosen. You say to yourself, this moment doesn't define the outcome, my faith does. You become someone who feels the waves but doesn't drown in them, and this inner steadiness is what makes you a clear vessel for manifestation. You are no longer sending mixed signals. You are no longer dancing between hope and despair. You are stable in your conviction. Even if the world still looks the same, you haven't failed. Because you still want it, you haven't failed. Because your emotions fluctuate, you haven't failed. If the desire hasn't arrived yet, letting go doesn't mean walking away from what you've built internally. It means walking with less weight, walking with more trust, walking with a heart that already feels the end and knows it's coming. The paradox is that the more you can live in that calm assurance, the faster things move, because nothing clears the path like a mind that no longer interferes, a heart that no longer clutches, and an energy that says, I am ready, I am whole, and I am already there. Chapter 17, Celebrating Early Acting on Faith. There is a moment in the manifestation process when your desire has not yet materialized, when the physical evidence is still absent, but something inside you begins to shift. You feel lighter, more certain, and strangely joyful for no apparent reason. This is not a fluke. It is the moment you begin to embody the future you've already claimed, and one of the most powerful ways to solidify that shift is through early celebration, not the kind of celebration that waits for proof, but the kind that signals unwavering faith. It is the decision to express gratitude and joy now, as if the result were already in your hands. This is not foolishness, it is alignment. It is the living, breathing expression of someone who knows how manifestation works and refuses to wait for the world to validate what they already feel. Most people reserve celebration for the end. They celebrate after the money arrives, after the goal is achieved, after the dream becomes visible. But this kind of celebration is reactive. It responds to what already exists. Living in the end asks something much more courageous: to celebrate before there is any proof, to celebrate while the world still looks the same, to lift your energy now, not because you've received, but because you trust that receiving is inevitable. This is how you collapse the timeline between desire and manifestation. By feeling the joy early, you send a powerful message to your subconscious and the universe: it's already mine. That message becomes your frequency, and your frequency becomes your reality. Celebrating early does not mean ignoring your current circumstances. It means refusing to let them define your emotional state. It means choosing joy as a tool of creation, not a reward for results. This joy is not manufactured, it's cultivated through deliberate focus. You think about the version of you who already has what you want, and you allow yourself to feel what they would feel, not just once, but often. You let that Emotion color your actions, your decisions, your energy. When you do this consistently, your body and mind begin to adjust. They stop identifying with lack and start identifying with fulfillment, and once your system acclimates to this new state, it becomes easier to stay there regardless of what the outer world is doing. Celebration is also a way of telling life that you are available for more. It creates an opening just as a grateful heart invites continued blessings. A heart that celebrates early signals readiness. It shows that you are no longer operating from a need to prove or achieve, but from a deep recognition that you are already aligned. This isn't about arrogance, it's about energetic maturity. It's about knowing that your inner world sets the tone. When you celebrate early, you are not pretending, you are rehearsing, you are becoming fluent in the emotional language of your future, so that when it arrives, you're not surprised, you're ready. This kind of celebration can be expressed in many ways. It might be dancing in your kitchen after a visualization session. It might be treating yourself to something small, not as a bribe or a distraction, but as an affirmation of your new standard. It might be writing a letter of thanks for a manifestation that hasn't yet arrived. It might be walking through your day with a smile that says, "I already know." These acts are simple, but their impact is profound. They shift your focus from waiting to receiving. They anchor you in the reality you've chosen, and they make you magnetic to every person, resource, and opportunity that aligns with that vibration. One of the hidden powers of early celebration is that it neutralizes resistance. Resistance thrives on tension, on the energy of waiting, needing, and doubting, but when you celebrate in advance, you dissolve that tension. You shift from the frequency of not yet to the frequency of already, and in that space things begin to flow. You take inspired action more naturally. You say yes to opportunities without fear. You trust yourself to make decisions from clarity rather than from desperation. You begin to embody a level of ease that was previously blocked by the belief that joy must be postponed, but joy does not have to wait. It can arrive now if you're willing to welcome it. Many people resist this idea because they believe it's dangerous to feel happy too soon. They fear disappointment, as if allowing themselves to feel good without proof might somehow jinx the outcome, but this belief is rooted in emotional superstition. It assumes that feeling joy prematurely is risky, when in fact it is one of the most powerful accelerators of manifestation. Disappointment only exists when you are emotionally tethered to a specific timeline or method, but if you truly believe that what you want is inevitable, then celebration is never premature. It is simply accurate. You're aligning with the truth that exists in the unseen long before it shows up in the visible. Acting on faith through early celebration is not about being blind to challenges. It's about being loyal to your vision. It's about keeping your vibration steady in the face of delay. It's about choosing the feeling before the form, and when you do, life responds in kind. It begins to mirror that joy back to you. Opportunities arise, circumstances shift, things begin to make sense in hindsight, and all of it started because you had the courage to feel good before anyone gave you permission. That is the essence of creation, not reacting to the world, but generating from within. So celebrate now. Celebrate with no need for explanation. Celebrate because it feels good. Celebrate because you know what's coming. Catching up. This is not just a mindset, it is a way of being. And when you live this way, wealth, joy, and fulfillment become less about what you chase and more about what you allow. Chapter 18. You are the source. At the heart of every principle in this book, every visualization, every assumption, every act of faith, lies a single unshakable truth. You are the source, not the world around you, not your job, not your business, not the market, not your history. You, everything you desire, is not something external waiting to be acquired. It is something internal waiting to be remembered, activated, embodied. Living in the end is not about convincing the universe to give you something. It is about waking up to the fact that the universe is responding to you at all times, and what it reflects back is not based on what you want, it's based on who you are being. This realization is both liberating and confronting. It means there is no one to blame for your lack, but there is also no one to thank for your abundance but yourself. The world may offer channels through which your desires arrive, but those channels are not your source. They are reflections of your inner state. When you truly accept this, you stop chasing, you stop begging for signs, you stop waiting for some external force to change your life. You start looking inward, asking not how can I get more, but how can I become more of who I already am. That shift rewrites everything, because once you realize you are the source, you begin to treat your thoughts, your feelings, your attention, and your frequency with a new level of respect. You stop outsourcing your power, you stop needing permission, you stop needing reassurance. You begin to understand That every dollar you've ever made, every breakthrough you've ever experienced, every opportunity that ever came your way, it all emerged from the energy you brought into the world, not from effort alone, but from alignment, not from proving your worth, but from remembering it. You did not come here to earn your abundance, you came here to express it. You came here to step into the knowing that everything you desire is already alive within you as potential, and your job is not to find it, but to allow it. This is why living in the end is not a trick or a tactic. It is a return to your natural state as a creator, a return to the version of you who doesn't wonder if it's possible but who lives as if it already is. This version does not argue for limitations. This version does not negotiate with scarcity. This version speaks, moves, thinks, and feels in alignment with a life that has already arrived. That is the state that collapses time. That is the frequency that bends reality, because when you live in the end, you eliminate resistance, you stop fighting against what is, and you align with what you've chosen, and in that alignment, manifestation is no longer an outcome, it becomes your way of life. You are the source of the wealth you seek, you are the source of the opportunities you crave, you are the source of the confidence, the clarity, the creativity, the expansion, and because you are the source, no one can take that from you. You cannot be cut off from it, you can only forget, but even in forgetting, the truth remains unchanged. You can always return, you can always remember, you can always realign, and when you do, the world around you shifts, not because it controls you, but because it mirrors you. The journey is not about becoming someone new, it's about releasing who you were taught to be, the one who worried, the one who doubted, the one who waited for approval. Underneath all that noise is a presence that is powerful, calm, magnetic, and abundant. That presence is your true self, and when you live from that place, wealth flows, not because you chased it, but because you remembered that you were never separate from it. You were the origin, the spark, the center. So let this celebrate, because you're already there in consciousness, and the physical world is simply be your final reminder. The world does not owe you your dreams, it reflects them. The life you want is not waiting on a miracle, it's waiting on your embodiment. You don't manifest what you wish for, you manifest what you assume. What you believe, what you feel in your body is already done. So walk like it's done, speak like it's done, decide like it's done, and keep returning to the frequency of completion until your reality has no choice but to rise and meet you there. You are not a seeker, you are not a beggar, you are not missing anything, you are the source. Now live like it. Chapter 19, Embodying Wealth Daily, making the end your normal. There is a point on the journey where living in the end is no longer a practice you visit, it becomes the life you inhabit. You stop reaching for the feeling of wealth as a temporary state and begin to embody it as your baseline. This is when the principles you've studied, visualized, affirmed, and repeated become integrated into the core of who you are. Wealth is no longer something you are trying to attract, it is the atmosphere you breathe, the frequency you emit, the identity you live from. You are no longer trying to feel abundant. You are abundance in motion. This is not a peak you reach once. It is a way of being you return to moment by moment until it becomes the only way you know how to live. To make the end your normal, you must stop seeing wealth as a future event and start treating it as a present condition. This means making decisions from the energy of sufficiency rather than scarcity. It means investing your time, attention, and resources in alignment with the life you say you want, not the one you fear might continue it. Means carrying yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer negotiates their worth or second-guesses their desire. When wealth becomes your normal, you no longer chase results to validate your vision. You move from an inner knowing that the result is simply a delayed echo of your daily embodiment. This shift is not dramatic, it is subtle. It shows up in how you respond to challenges, how you treat yourself in quiet moments, how you hold your posture even when circumstances are neutral. You begin to notice that your reactions no longer default to fear. You don't spiral when delays happen, you don't collapse into self-doubt when things don't go exactly as planned. Instead, you stay steady because your identity is no longer tied to evidence. You're not performing wealth to get a result, you're living wealth because it's who you are. This internal consistency creates external coherence. The more stable you are in your energy, the more effortlessly reality bends to match it. Daily embodiment also means honoring the rituals that reinforce your end state, not out of obligation but out of devotion to your vision. You don't journal just to check a box, you write because it anchors your clarity. You don't meditate just to feel peaceful, you do it because it reattunes your frequency. You don't speak affirmations as a wish, you speak them as confirmations. Each daily act becomes a brick in the foundation of your new reality, and over time those bricks form the structure of a life that can hold the wealth, the peace, the freedom, and the fulfillment you Once only imagined one of the signs you've normalized. We